Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Today, I'm talking about one of the 5 sleep elements, sleep duration. Before we dive into that, I probably should introduce myself for anyone who doesn't know who I am, or maybe you're new to my page. My name is Megan Robert. It's pronounced with a long O in case anybody was wondering. Megan Robert. I'm owner of After the Stork. I'm a child sleep coach, a postpartum doula, and a former nanny. So I work with lots of families, and my main focus is the child sleep coaching. So a lot of people are familiar or are becoming more familiar with what a child sleep consultant or coach is, but a lot of people are not familiar with what that actually means. So basically, I help families who are either struggling with their child's sleep or want to be proactive. So I educate on how to do that, and when we work together, I help you create a plan so that you can implement it to help your child improve their sleep. And a quick disclaimer, I am not a medical professional, so I don't help with, if there's sleep apnea. I can't diagnose things, but I can tell you what symptoms to look for in order to know that. However, I help with the behavioral side of sleep. So if there are no underlying medical issues, I help you to figure out how to respond to your child, what signs to look for to make sure that they are not overtired, an appropriate schedule, things like that. So today, we're going to be talking about the element of sleep duration. Last week, I went over the 5 elements of healthy sleep habits as proposed by Dr. Mark Weisbluth and his book, Healthy Sleep Habits, Happy Child. Love this book. The 5 elements were sleep duration, sleep regulation, sleep consolidation, sleep schedule, and naps. If you want to go look at what all those entail, you can go back to last week's video, which is under my folder of videos on my Facebook page. So today we're going to dive a little bit deeper into sleep duration. We'll be discussing the range of sleep needs per child's age, why it is important to allow your child to get the amount of sleep needed, and how to tell if your child is actually getting enough sleep. Something to keep in mind is that sleep begets sleep, and sleeplessness begets sleeplessness. So if your child is sleeping well, they will most likely continue to sleep well. But if your child is not getting the sleep that they need, then they get into this cycle of not being able to sleep. So we want to make sure that our children are getting an appropriate amount of sleep. First, I'm going to touch on newborns. So for newborns, for that first week to 4 weeks, you can expect your child to get about 15 to 16 hours of sleep. And over time, from 0 to 4 months, they will gradually go to about 14 to 17 hours within a 24-hour period. Now, the duration of sleep really depends on where you are looking for, what resource you're looking at. A couple different ones are the CDC, WebMD, the National Sleep Foundation, or APA. So they all kind of have their own ranges that they suggest, but they usually fall close to one another. So for newborns, about 14 to 17 hours within a 24-hour period. Now, it is important to know that biology strongly controls your child's sleep at this age. So your child's sleep patterns are not yet developed. They are maturing over time. They don't yet have habits. So your child, the sleep that they are getting is the sleep that they are going to need. So know that So you want to let your child sleep because biology is strongly taking over, and it is very important for them. How much sleep they're getting is going to reflect where your child is at with their brain development, because this is a big chunk of time when their brain is actually developing, and that sleep is contributing to it. And that is actually why we have different types of sleep for newborns and why it develops into something different over time. And that is something we will go over in the future when I start to talk about the science of sleep. We'll talk about sleep development, the architecture of sleep cycles, and how it affects the brain, and the 2 main regulatory systems that develop and contribute to sleep. But for now, know that your child, if they're a newborn, they contribute, the biology strongly contributes to the amount of sleep that they are getting. So this is why you're able to go to the store with your newborn. This is why you can go run errands, you can meet with friends. But once they reach a certain age, they need more structure in order to help them get the sleep that they need. And you can highly contribute to that with how you influence or impact your child. Now, some red flags to look for in case your newborn is not getting the amount of sleep they need. If your newborn is crying a lot, seems extremely fussy or colicky, these are good signs that your child is overtired and needs more sleep. So keep in mind that babies cry. That's very normal, especially within those first 6 weeks. Usually what happens as they develop is the crying becomes more and more, and then at 6 weeks it starts to taper off. However, if your baby is fussier than normal, you can reach out to either chat with me, or I would suggest, if you've got this book, you can go to chapter 5, and there's a lot of information about if your child is colicky or really, really fussy, what can you do to help your child? Now, keep in mind that although biology does control a lot of how your newborn sleeps, your involvement can start to impact your newborn early on. People say even as early as 6 weeks, and I have seen this myself when working with clients. 6 weeks is around the time that your newborn becomes more social. It's when they start to develop. It's when you'll see longer stretches at night. And this is a great time to start implementing sleep habits that you want your child to have in the future, and a great time to start being more sensitive to your child's needs. So instead of running around and being like, oh, I'm going to skip that nap, making it a priority to have your child sleeping when they need to. So the main takeaway is that the newborn phase is a huge time for brain maturation, and you want to be attuned with your newborn sleeps and needs. However, biology is going to be a big contributor to driving sleep. Now we're going to move on to older infants and children. So with sleep duration for infants and children, this is going to depend on your child's age. Also keep in mind when we talk about duration, it really depends on your individual child. So even though we've got these ranges, you know your child. And if you understand what your child needs with sleep, sometimes your child might need a little bit more or a little bit less than what is recommended or what is the average. However, I will say that a lot of past clients, when they come to me, they tell me that they don't think their child needs as much sleep as other children. I could bet money that that's not the case, that we really just need to help the child get more sleep because right now they're in an overtired state, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. But with sleep duration, so in general, like I mentioned before, you've got different organizations that make different recommendations, the CDC, WebMD, AAP, and the National Sleep Foundation. But they all kind of go around 12 to 16 hours for a 4 to 12-month-old. So for infants that are 4 to 12 months old, generally somewhere between 12 to 16 hours. And the smaller window that the WebMD and AAP provides is 14 to 15 hours. Toddlers, meaning 1 to 2 years of age, we can expect them to have somewhere between 11 to 14 hours of sleep. Now, these are including naps. This is nighttime sleep and naps. So a total of 11 to 14 hours within a 24-hour period. For preschool age, somewhere between 10 to 13 hours. Again, this is including naps. So a child between 3 to 6 years of age, somewhere between 10 to 13, and obviously around 4, 5, you aren't having naps anymore. But somewhere between that range overall. Now, why is it important that they're getting the amount of sleep that they need? The duration of your child's sleep, and I'm sure you have noticed this as a parent, can affect your child's temperament and their ability to learn. So it can affect whether or not your child's going to be calm or fussy. How adaptable are they going to be to change in their environment? Their irritability, are they in a good mood or are they not able to really regulate their emotions? Their attention span, their ability to absorb information. There actually was a study done by Mark Weisbluth that's explained in this book with infants around 5 months old, and it showed that The infants that were, happy, they were smiling, they were adaptable, they were regular, meaning that their sleep times and their feeding times were around the same time every day. They were children who would actually be curious and approach unfamiliar things and people. They usually slept about 3.5 hours during the day and 12 at night, for a total of about 15.5 hours. Now, from that same group that they studied, the children who were fussy, crying, irritable, hard to handle, irregular, meaning, again, they are not eating or sleeping at the same times every day, they were more withdrawn, they usually slept 3 hours during the day and only 9.5 hours at night. So they were losing about 3 hours of sleep compared to the other children who were calm and happy and adaptable. The children who slept longer overall had longer attention spans, and they were able to learn from their environment more, meaning that just by hanging out, they were able to learn from looking up at the clouds or the trees or a toy in front of them. They were able to play more. They were more able to independently play. Whereas the children who got less sleep during the day were fussier, restless, more demanding, less able to play on their own, and not as adaptable. They got tired of toys and objects a lot quicker than the children that got more sleep during the day. So from that study, they were able to see that children who got more sleep overall in a 24-hour period were more adaptable, happier, calmer, more willing to try new things. And the children that weren't, they were the opposite. The children who napped more during the day were able to learn more from their environment, had a longer attention span. So as you can see, sleep is really, really important for your child, and whether or not they get the right amount can heavily affect their temperament throughout the day and their ability to learn during these times when it's really important for them. These are, preschool age is times when your child, their mind is like a sponge. They're absorbing everything around them. So making sure that they get the sleep that they need during the day and at night is really, really important in order to help them. Now, something to keep in mind is that when a child is 4 months or older, they're no longer a newborn. So you know how I mentioned with newborns, biology takes over. For these older children, even though sleep is a biological need, there are certain habits. Habits can form, and habits become more pronounced for children that are 4 months or older. So even though they need sleep, if we don't provide them with the things that they need in order to get that sleep, they are going to have a more difficult time doing that, and they might not get the amount that they need. So you have a huge impact on your child's ability to sleep. You are a big influence. So knowledge of the appropriate schedule, how sleep actually will help, or how sleep actually works, will help you to be better attuned to your child's need for sleep and to better understand why and how you can affect them. So that's something that we're going to talk about in the future. We're going to dive into the science of sleep, which I'm really excited to get to, but I want to make sure we touch on these 5 elements so that you first understand what they are, and then in the future when we talk about the science, understanding the science will help you understand why these elements are important. It's not just something that someone makes up and says you need to have structure for your child. No, there are things that show that this is very helpful for your child so that they are able to live in this world that we live in. So a couple things that you can do as a parent in order to make sure that your child's getting enough sleep. One is to preserve all sleep. So try not to skip naps as best you can. Life happens, you go out and maybe you've got plans with friends over the weekend or a holiday or whatever, but do the best you can to preserve naps. Try not to skip them. They actually do matter, and not having them consecutively can affect your child. So ways around that is when someone asks to meet up for brunch, can you say, you know what, my child naps between 9 to 10:30. Is it possible to meet at 10:30? Or my child does better in the afternoons than in the mornings. Can we meet after my child wakes from their nap? You can work with people to see if there's ways around meeting up and running errands and having appointments that are around your child's schedule. Again, I know you are busy people. Having a family is a lot of work, and it doesn't always work out the way you want. So, that's understandable. But when it's possible, think outside the box to make it work. Another way to help your child get the sleep that they need is to keep all screens out of the bedroom. So no TVs, no tablets, no phones, nothing with a screen. For some people, that might sound like, well, yeah, of course. But actually, it's very common that TVs are found in the bedroom. In 2007, 20% of children under 2 years of age, and this was back in 2007, had TVs in their room. 40% of children between ages 3 and 6 had TVs in their room. Now, it's 13 years since then, so I can only imagine that that number has gone up. But this is one easy fix that you can make, because having a TV in a child's room is has been directly correlated with sleep problems and sleeping less. So if we can remove those screens that prevent your child from falling asleep, or prevent the onset of sleep and make it later, that will help your child get more sleep that they need. Okay, so what are some red flags to look for? How do you know if your child is not getting enough sleep? Some red flags would be, are they falling asleep in the stroller or in the car when you're out running errands? If your child is falling asleep constantly when you're out on the go, then they most likely are not getting enough sleep. Children who are sleeping well often will have a difficult time falling asleep in the car and need to be in their bed. Your child wakes up crying or grumpy or just confused. So if your child is consistently waking up and they are fussy, most likely your child needs more sleep. If you are experiencing the witching hour in the late afternoon. Now, I know that a lot of times when people think about the witching hour, they are imagining a witching hour for a newborn. They're super colicky, they're crying in the evenings. To some people, it's just like, well, that's normally what happens with newborns. But the witching hour can also apply to your preschooler, toddler, or infant. If your child is fussy between 4 and 5, or if your child is 3 years and older, so if they're napping and they're 3 and under, and they're fussy between 4 and 5, that's a red flag that they're not getting enough sleep. And if your child is 3 years or older and they're fussy between 5 and 7, that is a red flag that they are not getting enough sleep. So you want to look at their schedule. Now, if this is something that happens occasionally, maybe you have a day thrown off, that's reasonable. But if it's consistently happening, that's a good sign that your child is not getting enough sleep within a 24-hour period. Now, it is normal for 3 to 4 month olds and younger to be fussy in the afternoons occasionally or during the day. But for our infants, toddlers, preschoolers, if that's happening a lot, again, they're not getting enough sleep. And here's some signs to look for that they're short on sleep. And if they've got even a few of these, this could be a sign that you're having a witching hour and we need to help with that. Irritability, easily upset, they're clingy, they're whiny. Some moms refer to their children as clawing at their boobs. If your child is clawing at you, and it's not really, like if your child's not hungry and it's really a time that this is what they do when they're upset or tired, that's a sign that they are overtired and need more sleep. Short fuse, easily frustrated, uncooperative, angry. Some children will just lose control of their body. They hit their heads more or they fall over more. I've seen that a lot with overtired children. They're not able to regulate their emotions like I mentioned earlier, so they're angry, throw temper tantrums, more aggressive. So these are all things to look for to know if your child needs more sleep. And if you are having trouble with that and you're not sure how to go about it, you can absolutely reach out to me. One of my main things is I help families one-on-one figure out how to get their child on the appropriate schedule and make sure that they are getting the right amount of sleep so that they can be a happy baby. But I do want to point out a special note. An overtired child, so a child that has compounded sleep deficit, so day after day they're not getting enough sleep, they are not going to seem like they're tired. They are not going to seem like they need more. They are going to seem fine most of the day, and then they're going to have meltdowns in the evenings. Sometimes you might not even see this. So an overtired child is not going to always appear tired, because the loss of sleep can cause a central nervous system arousal. Central nervous system arousal, meaning they're hyperactive. So your child might come off wired and hyperactive and like they're not ever ready to go to sleep, and you take that as a sign that, oh, they're not tired yet, I guess I'll keep them up later, when oftentimes this is a big red flag that no, they need more sleep, and we have to help them get that, because they're not going to just make that decision themselves. So I hope you found that beneficial. If you want a list of all the 5 elements that I discussed last week, again, I have the video saved to my Facebook page. You can also download a document at afterthestorksleep.com/elements of healthy sleep. I go over the 5 elements as proposed by Dr. Mark Weisbluth in his book, and I kind of described them a little bit for you to have a recap of that. If your child is missing any of these signs, feel free to reach out. Any of these elements, feel free to reach out, and we can set up a time to chat. I'm happy to help you figure out how to get the best rest for your child so that your whole family can get the best rest that they need. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Next week, we're going to be touching on sleep regularity. So today we talked about sleep duration, and next week we're going to be talking about sleep regularity. So hope to see you guys there.